Inflation slowed in the U.S. last month, a sign that growth in the prices we pay for goods and services was cooling, even as the president was ramping up tariff threats at the time. The Consumer Price Index annual rate rose just 2.4% in March, which is the lowest inflation number since September.
But what about those tariffs? How will they affect future inflation? Joining us is Danny Court, senior economist at Scottsdale's Elliot D. Pollock Company. Danny, Wall Street didn't even seem to pay any attention to the CPI yesterday, and today it's just meandering up and down a little bit. They were focused on tariffs, so let's join them and ask, how will tariffs affect future inflation?
Yeah, there was a big kind of just shrug in the markets yesterday. I mean, possibly it helped, keep it at the level it was at, but that's basically what everyone's saying is, this is March inflation data, and it's basically stale based on all the things that have happened with tariffs. We've had kind of a whiplash here of introducing tariffs, rescinding them, pausing them. So right as we stand now, we've got a 10% global tariff and then these enormous tariffs that will be from imports coming out of China. So odds are that, we are expecting prices to rise in the coming weeks and months.
All right, so let's talk about kind of computing those tariff rates in relation to prices. Your average Joe sitting on the road right now, or average June, says, I have to buy a thing. I have to buy this widget, and how much of a price rise is that 10% tariff going to cost on my widget, and how much of that am I going to have to eat?
Yeah, and it is a complicated equation. I mean, it really is going to be dependent on consumer demand. So obviously anything coming out of China could be enormously expensive. And I think that'll end up being, replaced by an alternative if these remain in place and no deal gets made. But, we're already seeing in that CPI data, the areas that we saw price declines was consumer driven. Like we saw decreases in gas prices, hotel rooms, airplane tickets. So that's because people aren't spending money and those prices drop. So, can we absorb a 10%? Can the consumer absorb the 10%? It might be a necessary thing on those essential items, but on something that can be delayed, maybe that consumer just doesn't make that purchase. And then we start to see maybe the producer eats some of it, maybe the retailer eats some of it in their margins. So, anywhere from nothing to 10% is in the cards.
We are talking with senior economist at Elliot D. Pollock Company, Danny Court. Let's talk a little more local here. We see specific inflation numbers for the Phoenix metro area every other month from the federal government. Yesterday was our off month. Our inflation has been pretty low, though, in comparison to the rest of the country as a whole, 1.8% the last time we got that number for the Phoenix metro area. So what is your specific outlook for future Phoenix inflation?
Well, we are going to be a function. We will not be immune to these tariffs. So when the tariffs do start to filter into prices, we won't be immune to that. In other categories, yeah, we have been enjoying a little bit less inflation here. So, it all depends on, how these tariffs get in here and then, other aspects like our housing market and things like that. So I would expect that we, if we're at a lower level now, we'll basically be trending, the same way up or down with the U.S. inflation numbers.
But no chance of getting back to 13% inflation like we saw a couple of years ago, right?
Well, wow. With these reciprocal tariffs, I mean, again, we're on a 24-hour news cycle, right. And these are surprise announcements. So, if someone gets offended at the White House, we might see those reciprocal tariffs put back in place, and we just don't know. But all in all, it's we're looking at a lot of pullback from businesses and consumers based on all of this uncertainty that's happening, and that's why you're seeing these increased risks of recession.
Danny Court, senior economist at Scottsdale's Elliot D. Pollock Company. Thank you for joining us. It's it's so hard. You bean count, and it can be very dry and very boring. But ultimately, these are things that will affect you and your pocketbook.
Absolutely.
If they go through, if they don't, it could be something completely different. Right. And we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, it's impossible to do
Exactly.
that prognosticating. I can't even spell prognosticating. Think on.
Thanks for watching Arizona's Morning News. Click to watch more from KTAR News and hit the button in the middle to subscribe.